The world carries a significant burden of debt. In fact, the scale is truly immense. Remarkably, 71% of this global debt is not distributed evenly across nations. Instead, it is concentrated in just 5 countries. Imagine if only 5 individuals owned the majority of the world's pizza. That's the level of concentration we're talking about. It prompts us to consider, how did this situation arise? And is such an arrangement equitable? We are discussing sums in the trillions of dollars, amounts so vast they can be difficult to fully comprehend. Understanding the complexities of global debt can feel as challenging as untangling a complicated knot. Yet, it is crucial to grasp these dynamics, as debt influences everything from the cost of everyday goods to a nation's ability to invest in public services like hospitals. It is time to bring clarity to this often opaque world of international debt. In this video, we will examine the numbers, identify the key players in global debt, and consider whether there might be a better way forward. To begin, let's explore how we actually measure a country's debt. It involves more than simply summing up all outstanding IOUs. Economists rely on a metric known as the debt-to-GDP ratio. Think of GDP as a nation's annual income, the total value of goods and services it produces in a year. Debt, on the other hand, represents the total amount a country owes to creditors. The debt-to-GDP ratio shows how large a country's debt is in relation to its income. A high ratio indicates a country is relying heavily on borrowing, which can be risky. A low ratio suggests a nation is managing its finances conservatively, though perhaps with limited ambition. Consider the United States as an example. As of 2025, its GDP stands at approximately $27 trillion. The national debt, meanwhile, has reached $31 trillion. Dividing the debt by the GDP, 31 divided by 27, yields a ratio of about 1.15 or 115%. In other words, the country owes $115 for every $100 it earns. China, by comparison, has a GDP of $18 trillion and a debt of $14 trillion. This results in a debt-to-GDP ratio of approximately 78%. Japan, however, has one of the highest ratios in the world, hovering around 250%. This means Japan owes more than twice what it produces in a year. Which nations are responsible for the majority of the world's debt? Let us take a closer look at these leading borrowers. First, the United States remains at the forefront, with a national debt exceeding $31 trillion. This equates to approximately $90,000 for every American citizen. Next is China, holding around $14 trillion in debt, driven by extensive infrastructure investments and rapid economic growth. Japan follows, with a debt of $11 trillion and a notable debt-to-GDP ratio of 250%, reflecting years of economic challenges. France carries approximately $3.5 trillion in debt. Germany, renowned for its economic strength, nonetheless holds $2.8 trillion in debt. Collectively, these 5 nations are responsible for an extraordinary 71% of the world's total debt. At this point, you may be wondering, is debt always a negative thing? Does it mean these countries are facing serious financial difficulties? The reality is more nuanced. Nations routinely borrow funds, much like individuals do. The crucial factor is the interest rate they are charged. Wealthier countries with stable economies such as the United States, Japan, and Germany are able to borrow at very low interest rates. Sometimes these rates are as low as 1% or even less. It is similar to receiving a loan from a supportive relative who trusts you. In contrast, developing countries face a different reality. These nations are often required to pay much higher interest rates, sometimes 10% or more. This situation can resemble taking out a high-interest loan, making it extremely challenging to break free from the cycle of debt. Furthermore, a significant portion of the debt owed by developing countries is actually held by those same wealthier nations. It is as if you borrowed money to purchase a basic necessity, only to find yourself giving up a large part of your income each month just to keep up with the payments. Reconsidering the nature of debt in an interconnected world. Currently, a small group of affluent nations holds the majority of the world's debt. These countries are able to borrow at low costs and lend at higher rates, while developing nations often face significant challenges simply to remain financially stable. This dynamic can foster a sense of fundamental inequity. It is reminiscent of a game where the rules favor those who already possess the greatest advantages. This raises an important question. Is there a more just approach? Can we envision a global debt system that is more balanced and fair, where all nations have a genuine opportunity for economic growth and stability? Perhaps it is time to consider new perspectives and innovative solutions. Because the issue of debt extends far beyond mere statistics. It is fundamentally about people, their livelihoods, and the future we aspire to create together.